You don't expect me to keep any of those promises, do you?
Like, this is the most ridiculous.
Declare war on Spain, or are we not? Oh, Mama, here they come.
Oh, mama, here they come. I know I mentioned Wolf of Wall Street, but like, this is the 1940s version Wolf of Wall Street.
Boom, shakalaka, turner.
Welcome back to the Millennial Classics, y'all. My name is Q, and on this channel, we do millennial reviews and classic reactions. We are doing the classic of classics. We are doing the ultimate classic movie. This is Citizen Kane. In all of these top 10 greatest movies of all time, top 100 greatest movies of all time, Citizen Kane is usually top 3, and it's usually not 3. There's been many times that I've wanted to do this movie. Like, it's a director's movie, right? It's like a movie meant for the well-educated movie film. Like, you had to go to school to understand Citizen Kane, which is ridiculous when you think about it, because it's a movie and movies are meant for the general population. So I'm in here. I'm gonna do it. Let me tell you just a little bit about Citizen Kane before we get into the movie. The big boss, Orson Welles, is the director, but not just the director. He's also the main lead. And this was a first for a feature film. It's one thing to be a lead and also be a director. You see some directors and movie stars do that here and there, but it's a huge deal the way that Orson Welles went about it, because not only was it just like fucking amazing movie, but it's considered like I said, a true classic, like greatest hits. The story, it's basically about this man, Charles Foster Kane. He's a media mogul. It goes from rags to riches, which I think, you know, who doesn't love that story? That's like the American story, rags to riches. 1941 was when this movie was released. Orson Welles, like I said, he is the director and the main lead. Joseph Cotton, who plays Jedediah Leland, he's Kane's best friend. Dorothea Comingore, I hope I'm saying that right, plays Susan Alexander. That's Kane's second wife. It wasn't a blockbuster hit. It wasn't this like smash Jaws type of movie. It was just, it came out. It was good when it came out. It was like loved and appreciated. And then it just had legs, and the kind of legs where for the 100th time, it's considered the best movie of all time, which does blow my mind, right? It blows my mind. We'll find out if it deserves that title. It did win an Oscar for Best Original Screenplay, and the screenplay was written by Wells and Herman J. Mankiewicz. Revolutionized cinema with its storytelling techniques. And I read this, and again, I'm not the dictionary. I'm not the encyclopedia. I'm not the cinema file. I am getting my information from Wikipedia. So if I am wrong, please, give me grace. But it revolutionized movies per Wikipedia with flashbacks, deep focuses. I think that really surprises me, because I know flashbacks as just such an like an obvious way to explain a person's life, such an obvious thing to do in a movie. And if this was the first movie to do so, then you start to understand why people respect this movie so much. And I've yet to play a second of this movie. Kudos on that alone. How well they do the flashbacks, we are about to find out. We've done Jaws. We did The Exorcist. We did all of these huge movies in specific types of genres and movies. But Citizen Kane, it's a drama film. And when I think of movies, yes, there's specific types of genres like sci-fi, like fantasy, like horror. I would argue the reason movies were made is to tell a human story, show the people a human story. Yeah, just a human story. And drama is that. It's a human story at its most basic level. And when you revolutionize that type of storytelling, you do deserve all the credit in the world. And I really am excited to see if it's worth the hype. And let's get into it. And I always get super nervous when when I watch these older movies, especially the epics, because I'm afraid that they're like 6 hours long. But this movie is 2 hours, and I hope I'm not getting like the abridged version, if that's a thing for movies. But I hope that this is like the original version that was shown in theaters in 1940s. Of course, I'm doing it in black and white. I don't even think you can watch this movie in color. I was just saying how this movie is not a horror film, but I feel like everything in black and white makes it seem a little bit scarier, a little bit more ominous. Castle, this building, it looks like Dracula lives in here. If this is someone's house, it's not a house. It's like like, what do they call them in England? Like a manor? So someone is in there. It's dilapidated, but it hasn't been taken care of, but someone is in there. Why is it so dramatic? If the nurse's name is Rosebud, that's the weirdest name. I don't know. Maybe that was a popular name back in the day. Xanadu, landlord? In Xanadu, did Kubla Khan a stately pleasure dome decree? I don't know what any of that means. I don't know who Kubla Khan is.
World's largest private pleasure ground.
Okay, so Xanadu is the place.
100,000 trees, 20,000 tons of marble are
20,000 tons?
contents of Xanadu's palace. Paintings, pictures, statues, the very stones of many another palace. Collection of everything.
He must be English.
Where the British stole all of our stuff!
The fish of the sea, the beast of the field and jungle.
Back in the day when people got rich, they would always do the animal thing. At least pop stars would. You know, like Michael Jackson, Mike Tyson roamed around with a fucking tiger.
Xanadu is the costliest monument a man has built to himself. A potent figure of our century.
To 44 million US news buyers, more newsworthy than the names in his own headlines was Kane himself.
The first of grocery stores, forests, an empire through which for 50 years flowed in an unending stream the wealth of the earth's third richest gold mine.
Just going over the things he owned or like his businesses, he has a gold mine. Kudos, right? I mean, that's just not luck of the draw, but the way you get to own an entire gold mine, you either have to be like the most like genius human being ever or rich enough to buy a huge amount of land. But through all the lists, the sailors, the trains, and the paper mill and the newspaper company, that all makes sense. But why did they add forests, right? Like, you can't own a forest.
That boy, Charles Foster Kane, personally attacked you after striking you in the stomach with a sled.
Oh, damn. He was a spicy little boy.
Charles Foster Kane, in every essence of his social beliefs, is, in fact, nothing more or less than a communist.
A communist?
He is today what he has always been, and always will be, a fascist.
So he's just, you know, it just sounds like everyone was talking shit about him and would say whatever. I am, have been, and will be only one thing, an American. I love that. I really do like that. I promise I'm not going to talk as much, but I'm lying to you. I'm going to talk a lot.
No public man whom Kane himself did not support, then denounce.
Damn. Is that him next to Hitler? Yes. Oh, shit.
Emily Norton, who left him in 1916, died 1918 in a motor accident with their son.
Aw, that's really shitty.
2 weeks after his first divorce, Kane married Susan Alexander.
2 weeks after his first divorce? He was definitely double dipping. That's not even possible.
The still unfinished Xanadu. Cost, no man can say.
No man can say. In politics, always a bridesmaid, never a bride.
How did you find business conditions in Europe?
With great difficulty.
I don't know why that's funny.
I'm always glad to be back, young man. I'm an American.
What do you think of the chances for war in Europe?
You can take my word for it. There'll be no war.
If we're assuming that this is like one of his last interviews before he died, obviously there's going to be war. 1940, it's the biggest war in the history of mankind.
Alone in his never-finished, already decaying pleasure palace, an emperor of newsprint continued to direct his failing empire, vainly attempted to sway as he once did the destinies of a nation that had ceased to listen to him. Then, last week, death came to Charles Foster Kane.
After watching Wolf of Wall Street, and I did do a reaction for that, please check that out if you are interested at all. If you have all the money in the world, even if you get all of that money in a not so like genius way, the way most human beings judge you, it's like, okay, this man is worth X amount of money. He must be at least an expert in this area of life. Jeff Bezos must be a genius because he has all of this money. And like the newspapers are saying that constantly about you. It's hard not to feel that way. If you had more money than you knew what to do with, I don't know if you would make all the smartest decisions either. I can't imagine what I would do with an infinite amount of money. So I feel like it's just too easy to just like poo-poo folks who are super wealthy and get to live the life that they dream up.
All we saw on that screen was that Charles Foster Kane is dead. I know that. I read the paper. What were Kane's last words? Maybe he told us all about himself on his deathbed.
You don't read the papers.
When Charles Foster Kane died, he said just one word.
Rosebud.
Okay. Who was she? I thought it was the nurse.
Find out about Rosebud. Get in touch with everybody that ever knew him, whoever loved him, whoever hated his guts. I don't mean go through the city directory, of course.
I'll get on it right away, Mr. Olson.
Good. Rosebud.
Good.
Dead or alive.
I really enjoyed that. I thought that was nice. The best way to understand a person is to get to know the person. You need an angle, you need a story, you need to understand who the person is, not just the things that they did. El Rancho? I don't like that name. It's a crappy name for, was it a bar?
Who told you could sit down?
Well, damn. She looks really, really young.
Get out!
Shit. She's not in the mood, guy.
Sorry.
If Mr. Kane died at 70, the age difference must have been like 40 years. I mean,
Did you ever say anything about Rosebud?
Just the other day, when the papers were full of it, I asked her. Never heard of Rosebud.
he's never heard of it. So her name is, obviously not Rosebud, but I'm a nurse and I know that I've been around enough folks at the end of their life to know the final words rarely mean all that much.
I bring him right in.
All I want
Under
to
no
know is...
circumstances are direct quotations from his manuscript to be used by you.
Well, that's
Give
all
me
right.
company.
I'm just looking for one.
She's about her business. It's a really intense library. It's got like a metal locked door and a safe. I first encountered Mr. Kane in 1871.
If I want, I can go to court. My father has a right to.
We will assume full management of the Colorado load, of which I repeat, Mrs. Kane.
Oh, this is that old dude in the courts or whatever that was talking about when he first met Mr. Kane.
Anybody think I hadn't been a good
The
husband?
sum of
father?
$50,000 a year is to be paid to you and Mr. Kane as long as you both live, and thereafter to the survivor.
Well, let's hope it's all for the best.
It's a lot of money. Once you hear the money, then all of a sudden it's not a bad idea. But that's crazy to give up your kid. Fuck all of that.
Don't you think I'd better meet the boy?
I've got his trunk all packed.
Already?
Where am I going?
You're going to see Chicago and New York.
Why aren't you coming with us, Mom?
Why can't she come?
You're going to live with Mr. Thatcher from now on, Charlie. You're going to be rich.
I'm not as frightening as all that, am I? Now, what do you say? Let's shake.
Why, Charles!
Charles, you almost hurt me.
Oh.
What that kid needs is a good thrashing.
That's what you think, is it, Jim?
Yes.
That's why he's going to be brought up where you can't get at him.
I don't know the dynamic between the mom and the dad, and I don't know if the dad is wanting to keep Charles around because of the money, and it did sound like he did, because the second he heard the $50,000 a year until they die, he changed his mind pretty quickly. But at the same time, the willingness in which his mom is willing to give him up to some strange banker, you guys, that blows my fucking mind. You have a kid, and then it's like, okay, this kid has all this money, and now you have to give him up to this bank. And you're so quick to say yes that you pack his bags a week prior to him coming? It's craziness.
Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. May I again remind you that your 25th birthday, which is now approaching, marks your complete independence from the firm of Thatcher and Company, as well as the assumption by you of full responsibility for the world's 6th largest private fortune.
World's 6th largest private fortune. That's insanity.
Sorry, but I'm not interested in gold mines, oil wells, shipping, or real estate.
One item on your list intrigues me, the New York Inquirer. Little newspaper I understand we acquired in a foreclosure proceeding. It would be fun to run a newspaper.
Think it'll be fun?
I think it would be fun to run a newspaper. Shouldn't trust smash my Inquirer. Is that really your idea of how to run a newspaper?
I don't know how to run a newspaper, Mr. Thatcher. I just try everything I can think of.
That's Charles? He's a good-looking man.
Still the college boy, aren't you?
Oh, no, Mr. Thatcher. I was expelled from college. A lot of colleges, you remember.
Yeah.
I think I should remind you of a fact that you seem to have forgotten.
Yes,
That you are yourself one of the largest individual
Mr. Thatcher.
stockholders in the public transit company.
The trouble is you don't realize you're talking to two people. As Charles Foster Kane, who owns 82,000 shares of public transit, I sympathize with you. Charles Foster Kane is a scoundrel. His paper should be run out of town. A committee should be formed to boycott him. On the other hand, I am the publisher of the Inquirer. As such, it's my duty, it's also my pleasure, to see to it that decent, hard-working people in this community aren't robbed blind by money-mad pirates.
Wait, that's honorable as shit. He got expelled from college, who knows why, but he
I don't
seems
look after the interests of the
like a decent guy.
underprivileged. Maybe somebody else will.
Don't you think it's rather unwise to continue this philanthropic enterprise? This Inquirer that's costing you $1 million a year?
You're right, Mr. Thatcher. I expect to lose $1 million next year. You know, Mr. Thatcher, at the rate of $1 million a year, I'll have to close this place in 60 years.
He's got money to blow. He's got money to blow. That is honorable, though. I can see why Mr. Thatcher, was saying that he was a communist, because he's talking about like losing $1 million a year, and that's okay because I want to tell the truth, even if the truth means that I am talking about the company I have 86,000 or 82,000 shares of. I like Mr. Kane. I like Charles. I think he seems like a decent guy.
Charles Foster Kane hereby relinquishes all control thereof.
I've read it, Mr. Thatcher. Let me sign it.
Too old to call me Mr. Thatcher, Charles.
You're too old to be called anything else. You were always too old.
You know, Charles, never made a single investment. Always used money to buy things.
What else is money there for, right?
If I hadn't been very rich, I might have been a really great man.
Don't you think you are?
I like that. If I hadn't been very rich. The relationship between Charles and Mr. Thatcher is spicy. I was just complimenting how good of a guy he is, but now he's like at the end of his life and he's not making as much money as he should, or doesn't, he's running into money troubles. And all of a sudden that hoorah, I need to do what's right feeling goes away. And he's like, okay, I'll give ownership to Mr. Thatcher and company. So I like the young Charles.
If we could find out what he meant by his last words as he was dying.
That Rosebud, huh? Some girl?
Maybe. That's what I assumed, but I assumed it was a nurse.
Who else have you been to see?
Well, I went down to Atlantic City.
Susie? I called her myself the day after he died. I thought maybe somebody ought to.
I like Mr. Bernstein.
Couldn't even come to the
like
phone.
the old version of Mr. Bernstein and the Mr. Bernstein I saw at the newspaper
Rosebud,
when he was coming up to interrupt.
If you
I
just
like
talk
Mr.
about
Bernstein.
anything connected with Mr. Kane that you can remember.
You know who you ought to see? Mr. Leland. He was Mr. Kane's closest friend. He was with Mr. Kane and me the first day Mr. Kane took over the Inquirer.
This is his best bud. This is his best friend.
There ain't no bedrooms in this joint. That's a newspaper building.
You're getting paid, mister, for opinions or for hauling?
The jokes back in the day.
I didn't know your plans, so
I don't know my plans myself.
I was unable to make any preparation.
Matter of fact, I haven't got any plans. Carter!
Yes, Mr. Bernstein.
Mr. Carter.
Steve! Kane!
Mr. Carter, is this your office, Mr. Carter? Mr. Carter, I'm going to live right here in your office as long as I have to, and Mr. Carter.
Live here?
That's right, Mr. Carter.
But a morning newspaper, Mr. Kane.
That's
After
right,
all,
Mr. Carter.
we're practically closed for 12 hours.
Excuse me?
12
Excuse me.
a day.
Mr. Carter, that's one of the things that's going to have to be changed around here. The news goes on for 24 hours a day.
I love this. I feel like Mr. Kane was ahead of his time. Well, maybe not. I don't know if people really didn't know that the news was 24 hours, 365. But the way he's coming into the Inquirer and he's like, all right, this is what needs to happen. Let's jump on it. I'm telling you, I like the young Charles Kane.
If the headline is big enough, it makes the news big enough.
That's right, Mr.
Now, the
Kane.
murder of this Mrs. Harry Silverstone.
There's no proof that woman was murdered, or even that she's dead.
Says she's missing, and the neighbors are getting suspicious.
It's not our function to report the gossip of housewives.
That's the kind of thing we are going to be interested in from now on. Mr. Carter, I want you to send your best man to see Mr. Silverstone in Brooklyn. Have him tell Mr. Silverstone if he doesn't produce his wife at once, the Inquirer will have him arrested.
Yeah, I thought I respected him. I thought it was like I'm out here to do the truth, because the last conversation they had about what was in the newspaper, he was talking to Thatcher about the corrupt business that he had a huge share of. So I was like, that is honorable. But on his first day, he's, sex and violence and gossip, and he's trying to make money for the newspaper, whether it's true or not. Let's see where it goes.
Might be murdered. Lady just cares for rough and read all about it.
Imagine that's how you have to sell the news, man.
I've got to make the New York Inquirer as important to New York as the gas.
That's crazy.
I'll provide the people of this city with a daily paper that will tell all the news honestly. They're going to get the truth in the Inquirer, quickly and simply and entertainingly.
Entertainingly?
When you're through with that, I'd like to have it back. I'd like to keep that particular piece of paper myself. Might turn out to be something pretty important. Like the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution.
Slow your roll.
And my first report card at school.
I respect the message. You know, I'm going to tell you the news honestly. I'm going to do it simply. The entertaining one, I understand, but I'm like, do you want that to be in your declaration? I don't think that should be number 3, you know? But when you put the I multiple times in the first 2 sentences in your new newspaper, it does make it very me, right? You know, it seems like the most self-absorbed way to go about owning a newspaper. I am doing it. I will provide this. I feel like he has a big heart and he has great goals, but he doesn't understand the practicality of things and is a bit self-absorbed. A bit. A lot. 26,000. Is that a lot?
They've been making statues for 2,000 years, and I've only been buying for 5.
Promise me, Mr. Kane.
I promise you, Mr. Bernstein.
Thank you.
Mr. Bernstein.
Yes?
You don't expect me to keep any of those promises, do you?
Like, this is the most ridiculous.
Declare war on Spain, or are we not? Oh, Mama, here they come.
Oh, mama, here they come. I know I mentioned Wolf of Wall Street, but like, this is the 1940s version Wolf of Wall Street.
War on Spain, or are we not?
The Inquirer already had.
You long-faced, overdressed anarchist.
So your neighbors could hear.
Kane, is there a song about Charlie? Is there a song about you, Mr. Kane?
You buy a bag of peanuts in this town, you get a song written about you.
Certain man.
A certain man.
For the poor, you may be sure that he'll do all he can.
Let them sing. But I do have to say, going from 26,000 to 600,000 in 6 years is huge. But at the same time, you know, he's this super rich man, so he was able to buy it all. Right, he was able to buy the entire board from the opposing newspaper. So, like,
Isn't it wonderful? Such a party. What's the matter?
what is Jedediah upset about?
These men who were with the Chronicle, weren't they just as devoted to the Chronicle policies as they are now to our policies? There's always a chance, of course, that they'll change Mr. Kane.
That is always an option. Oh, is this all of the statues that they were talking about at the Xanadu?
Welcome home, Mr. Kane. From 467 employees of the New York Inquirer.
You get a trophy for coming back? How much can you boost someone's ego? You don't need a trophy for returning back to work.
I'm sorry.
What is going on?
Oh.
Hey, everybody, looky out here.
Looky out here? What?
This announcement. Mr. and Mrs. Thomas Monroe Norton announced the engagement of their daughter Emily Monroe Norton to Mr. Charles Foster Kane. She's the niece of the President of the United States.
Before he's through, she'll be a president's wife.
When you have all the money in the world, when you are everyone around you's employer, friendly or not friendly, it's hard for you to get the honest truth. But Mr. Bernstein himself said when Mr. Kane was out of earshot, when he didn't have to say it, he will one day be the president. So he maybe honestly believes that. Is it the truthful perspective? Is he blinded by the money? But I still do like Mr. Bernstein. He seems as though he's always been on Mr. Kane's side for the good and does seem sometimes for the bad.
It didn't end very well, did it?
It ended. I wish I knew where Mr. Leland was.
He's at the Huntington Memorial Hospital on 180th Street.
Why, you don't say. I had no
Nothing
idea.
particular the matter with him, they tell me.
Just old age. It's the only disease that you don't look forward to being cured of.
I love that line. The elite disease you don't look forward to being cured of.
I was his oldest friend, and as far as I was concerned, he behaved like a swine. I suppose he had some private sort of greatness, but he kept it to himself.
Damn.
He never gave himself away. He never gave anything away, but he never believed in anything except Charlie Kane.
Damn. This is his best friend?
Mr. Leland, what do you know about Rosebud?
The dying words. I saw that in the Inquirer. Well, I never believed anything I saw in the Inquirer.
Damn.
I can tell you about Emily. She and Charlie didn't see much of each other except at breakfast. It was a marriage just like any other marriage.
That doesn't sound like a marriage. And if so, marriage sounds horrible. Jeez.
Do you know how long you kept me waiting last night while you went to the newspaper for 10 minutes? What do you do in a newspaper in the middle of the night?
Emily, my dear, Your only correspondent is the Inquirer.
It isn't just the time. It's what you print. Attacking the president.
You mean Uncle John? He's still a well-meaning fathead who's letting a pack of high-pressure crooks run his administration.
He happens to be the president, Charles, not you.
That's a mistake that will be corrected one of these days.
The ego on this man.
People will think
What I tell them to think.
Damn. That's an ego. As much as an ego as a human being can have, right? The Chronicle. The Chronicle. Ay, 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 ay. They become this petty, huh? When he says things like, what will people think? And his response is, they'll think what I tell them to think. That's like a godly power.
That's all he really wanted out of life was love. He just didn't have any to give. Well, he loved Charlie Kane, of course, very dearly.
How about his second wife?
Susan Alexander. The day after he'd met her, he told me about her. She was a cross-section of the American public.
Damn!
What are you laughing at, young lady?
hooray!
Toothache? What's funny about that?
You're funny, mister.
Do you think she knows who he is? Can't be just inviting random folks up your house.
What are you doing?
I'm wiggling both my ears at the same time. That's a smile. It took me 2 solid years in the best boys' school in the world to learn that trick. The fellow who taught it to me is now the president of Venezuela.
Good for you. Jeez and Lord.
Gee, you know an awful lot of tricks. You're not a professional magician, are you?
You really don't know who I am?
Well, you told me your name, Mr. Kane, but I'm awful ignorant, but I guess you caught on to that.
I'm awful ignorant.
You want to know what I was going to do tonight before I ruined my best Sunday clothes? I was on my way to the Western Manhattan warehouse in search of my youth. See, my mother died a long time ago, and her things were put in storage out west. There wasn't any other place to put them. I run a couple of newspapers. What do you do?
Well, I work at Siegelman's. I am in charge of the sheet music there. Wanted to be a singer, I guess. My voice isn't that kind. It's just, well, you know what mothers are like.
Yes, I know.
Bruh. I don't like the singing at all. Maybe I need to listen some more, but I believe this love story. I think this is beautiful. I love the connection. I feel like that was the most I've heard Mr. Kane talk about himself, the most personal he has gotten since the beginning of the movie. His mom just died and he wants to go down memory lane, and that's why he was going to the warehouse. That is him. I think that's the realest he's been. And I believe this relationship way more than I believe him and Emily. I hate to say it. This feels like love.
I am speaking of Charles Foster Kane,
Oh, he's going into politics now.
the next governor of this state, who entered upon this campaign with one purpose only: to point out and make public the dishonesty. I made no campaign promises because until a few weeks ago, I had no hope of being elected. Now, however, I have something more than a hope.
He wants to take over the world.
The working man and the slum child know they can expect my best efforts in their interest.
That I'll do everything in my power to protect the underprivileged and the underfed.
You guys, it's a pretty good speech. I like the speech. But what politician can't make a good speech, right? Like that's the honest truth.
If I weren't too busy arranging to keep them.
It's a good line.
My first official act as governor of the state to arrange for the indictment, prosecution, and conviction of boss Jim W. Geddes.
But why, though? Charles Kane, he's a human being, right? I want him to be all good or all bad because it's a movie. I want it to be straightforward, but the beauty of a drama is understanding that no one is just one thing.
Sending Junior home in the car, Charles, with Oliver.
Night, Father!
Bye, son.
What is he confused by?
Why'd you send Junior home in the car, Emily? What are you doing in the taxi?
There's a call I want you to make with me, Charles.
Can wait.
No, it can't.
Oh, shit. So this has to be about Susie, right?
No idea you had this flair for melodrama, Emily.
This is considered melodrama. If you are cheating on your wife and she catches you, it's not melodrama.
Charlie forced me to send your wife the letter.
I'm Jim Geddes.
Oh, shit.
This Mr. Kane makes up his mind by tomorrow that he's so sick he has to go away for a year or two. Monday morning, every paper in the state except his will carry the story I'm going to give him. Story about him and Miss Alexander, Mrs. Kane.
Damn.
If you don't listen to reason, it may be too late.
Too late?
Charlie, you got other things to think about. Your little boy. You don't want him to read about you in the papers.
There's only one person in the world to decide what I'm going to do, and that's me.
Fuck. This is real, you guys. This is, like, real.
If anybody else I'd say what's going to happen to you, it'd be a lesson to you. Only you're gonna need more than one lesson.
I'm Charles Foster Kane! I'm no cheap, crooked politician!
I want to believe that he is doing the right thing by saying no. I am not going to let a politician, corner me and then hold this over my head for the rest of my career. But at the same time, that's the same thing children do. I am going to yell and scream and have it my way. He wants it all. Charles does only love himself. And in this moment, him loving himself is choosing Susie. Candidate Kane caught in love nest with singer. That's what we saw in the beginning. Product post. Charles Foster Kane defeated. I want to say this is his first big L in the movie. Obviously, losing Emily was a big L, but that was of his choosing. This is like the official L, something he wanted and he couldn't get.
It's obvious the people prefer Jim Geddes to me. You talk about the people as though you own them. You used to write an awful lot about the working man.
Oh, go on
He's turning
home.
into something called organized labor. You're not gonna like that one little bit when you find out it means that your working man expects something as his right, not as your gift, Charlie.
It's not a bad point.
You just want to persuade people that you love them so much that they ought to love you back.
Damn. Oh, who's cutting deep?
Charlie, I want you to let me work on the Chicago paper.
What? Charlie, there's nothing left for me to do but ask you to...
All right, you can go to Chicago.
He's a good boss. Well, he's a good friend. I don't know about a good boss.
Toast, Jedediah, to love on my terms. Those are the only terms anybody ever knows.
Taking criticism on the day you lose an election is not an easy thing to do. And have to let the world know that you lost is not a fucking easy thing to do. And he took it on the chin. He took it like a champ. He took it like a gentleman. When the world screams at you and gives you constantly the thing that you want when you want, it's hard to believe you can't continue getting the thing that you want when you want it. I don't know. I am truly torn on the fact that he's a good person and he's a bad person. Everything Jedediah said is true, and he deserves to get that lecture by Jedediah. But at the same time, the way in which he took it, the way in which he received it, shows a lot of humility. He seems happy now. Oh, the Chicago Opera House. The opera house that he builds, he has Susie star at. Talk about nepotism.
Fine. The music notice on the front page?
Yes, Mr. King.
But there's still one notice to come.
Dramatic notice?
That's
Bernstein, that's Mr.
Jedediah.
Leland, isn't it?
Yes, Mr. Kane. We're waiting for it.
Overacting it is absolutely impossible to say anything except that in the opinion of this reviewer, it represents a new low. Have you got that, Mr. Bernstein? In the opinion of this reviewer.
I didn't see that.
Get me a typewriter. I'm going to finish Mr. Leland's notice. My notice, Bernstein. I've got to finish my notice.
Mr. Kane is finishing it for you. Mr. Kane is finishing your review just the way you started it.
You're fired.
You can't be upset about getting fired. If you're getting drunk to the point where you can't finish the notice that's due for tomorrow's review.
He thought that by finishing that notice, he could show me he was an honest man. He was always trying to prove something. You know what the headline was the day before the election? Candidate Kane found in love nest with, quote, singer, unquote.
Yes. I didn't even notice that about the title of the newspaper. Getting married to a, quote, singer. And he wanted to take the quotes off of singer.
Xanadu. Guess he was pretty lonely down there in that Coliseum all those years. He never finished it. He never finished anything. Except my notice.
He's an asshole.
Nerd!
Yes, Mr. Lincoln.
Oh, I'm coming.
I can't tell. Is he actually confused? Because he's making a lot of sense. If his wife's dream, if Susie's dream is to become a singer, he has all the money in the world. And if he can share it with someone, great. Share it with the person you love. And like you saw in the beginning of her show, like it looked like her singing coach was yelling at her. So it couldn't have been news to him the day of the reviews when people were like, she ain't got it. But it's his wife. I think Jedediah might be being a little too cynical. I like to think of myself as a romantic, and that seems romantic. I built a fucking opera house for you. Oh, so like now we're back to Susie, so she can tell us exactly what she felt. Was she happy? She didn't seem happy. Maybe she's super drunk now because he died and he tried to do everything for her. But they did get a divorce. I don't know. Let's find out.
He was really interested in my voice. What do you suppose he built that opera house for? I didn't want it. I didn't want to sing.
Don't forget that of the throne. Play. Forward, forward. Open the eyes. Go ahead, go ahead.
I like this guy.
You're out of pitch. Some people can sing, some can't. Impossible.
It's not your job to give Mrs. Kane your opinion of her talent.
Damn.
Was to train her voice, senor.
I will be the laughing stock of the musical world. People will think that
People will think I'm something of an authority on what people will think.
Yeah, this is all about Charles. This has nothing to do with Susie. That big speech I just went on is bullshit. This is about him. It's only about him. Fuck. Charles is not that good of a man. Look at him. Look at him. Do you think she could have just said no? But at the same time, if you're just a regular person and someone builds a fucking opera house for you and they ask you to perform and you say no, god damn it, I don't know. That's Jedediah's like, how long is this motherfucking thing? 5 minutes into the show. What's worse than knowing you're shitty at something and being forced to show the world how shitty you are at that thing? Jedediah, Jesus.
that shit is fucking trash, dog. Get the fuck off the airwaves.
I knew I was the only one, you know, when they were first dating, that thought that the singing was wild, but how much you feel about yourself when you know that everyone's clapping for the person that bought the stage versus,
Stop telling me he's your friend. Friend don't write that kind of review. All these other papers pounding me, I could expect that. But for the Inquirer to run a thing like that, spoiling my whole debut.
spoiling it.
You ought to have your head examined. Sending him a letter telling him he's fired with a $25,000 check in it. You did send him a check for $25,000, didn't you?
He ripped it out and sent it back.
What's
Oh, shit.
Declaration of Principles. Continue with your singing, Susan.
Yeah,
Propose to have myself made ridiculous.
I'm the one that's got to do the singing. Why don't you let me alone?
My reasons satisfy me, Susan.
I don't know if this happens to people, to human beings as they age, right? He's a young man. He gets when he's 25, he gets all the money in the world, and he comes into the newspaper business because there's an attraction there. There's an understanding there. He feels something there, right? He wants to make the paper a better place. That fails. Let me at least try to govern. Let me try to get into politics. That fails. Okay, so the social life is next. And what's my venue into the social life? It's having my partner who says she wants to be a singer actually be this great singer. None of this is about the thing he's doing. It's all about the reflection of himself. But this is fucked up. I really badly wanted to think that he was, selfless in any way, but this, after seeing this, forcing his wife to do something she doesn't want to do, he and her knowing that she's terrible, but him forcing her to do it just so people, I don't know, but this is fucking insane. His best friend going out of his way to be like, it's trash. Jeez, why would you grab somebody like that? Oh shit, is this a suicide attempt?
She'll be perfectly all right in a day or two, Mr. Kane.
Or is she actually sick?
Can't imagine how Mrs. Kane came to make such a foolish mistake. Sedative Dr. Wagner gave her was in a somewhat larger bottle.
If it gets to the point where your wife would rather kill herself than do another performance, and you're the one pushing this fucking performance, you no longer have the right to be considered a good or bad guy. You are just a bad guy. Doesn't matter how much money, doesn't matter how selfless you think you are. This is fucking insane.
But I couldn't go through with the singing again.
That's the length she has to take to get him to listen.
That a whole audience just doesn't want you.
That's when you gotta fight him.
That's when you got. Bruh. This dude, bro.
You won't have to fight him anymore. It's their loss.
He really has to tell himself that, right?
Jigsaw puzzles.
Would you imagine being in a home like that where it echoes just when you talk?
Person could go crazy in this dump. 49,000 acres of nothing but scenery and statues. I'm lonesome.
49,000 acres? You know how they say like golden handcuffs? Susie here, Susan is this is the definition. All of these different puzzles. This is her days. This is what she does for fun. Like another puzzle.
Oh, how do you know you haven't done it before?
Makes a whole lot more sense than collecting statues.
I thought we might have a picnic tomorrow. Invite everybody to spend the night at the Everglades.
This is his idea of a picnic. It's gone to the point where everything he does wants to be so flashy, like he's screaming and dying for attention.
Oh, sure, you give me things, but that don't mean anything to you.
It doesn't. If it doesn't cost you anything.
You never gave me anything in your whole life. You just tried to buy me into giving you something.
He's speaking the truth.
Whatever I do because I love you.
You
I
don't
don't believe that.
You want me to love you? Sure. I'm Charles Foster Kane. Whatever you want, just name it and it's yours. But you gotta love me.
All the same, I feel kind of sorry for Mr. Kane.
I was about to say the same thing.
Don't you think I do?
But if the thing that you want is love, and all you are surrounded by 24/7 is money, or people who want your money, or people who are working for you to get your money, or then you come to learn and understand that money is how you love. I feel bad for the fucking man. You have to think that I don't want to say that his mom sold him, but like, that's what it felt like in the beginning of the movie. Like, how would you feel like if you knew that your parent gave you up for X amount of money? I feel bad for him. I really, really do.
I tell you about Rosebud. Well, I tell you, Mr. Thompson. He acted kind of funny sometimes, you know? Like the time his wife left him.
Crazy sound. Is that the snow globe? So does Rosebud have something to do with his Susie?
I heard him say it that other time, too. Just said, Rosebud. How much do you think all this is worth?
Millions?
Well, clear all right.
He never threw anything away.
Welcome home, Mr. Kane, from 467 employees of the New York Enquirer. Sure like to collect things, didn't he?
Anything and everything.
I wonder, you put all this stuff
So
together.
much stuff.
If you could have found out what that rosebud meant, I bet that would have explained everything.
No, I don't think so.
I don't think so either.
No. Mr. Kane was a man who got everything he wanted and then lost it. Maybe Rosebud was something he couldn't get or something he lost. No, I guess Rosebud is just a piece in a jigsaw puzzle.
Was this really the end of the movie? God damn, man. Got everything he wanted and lost it. The assumption is that he didn't want any of this stuff. He thought he wanted this stuff. But he didn't lose this stuff. So much stuff. Useless stuff. Stuff that has yet to come out of crates. Reasons he's bought it, probably because he was at some art show and he was standing next to someone he wanted to impress. And I will buy that. Or I don't know, but it doesn't seem as though any of this matters. Oh, that's Rosebud. Wait, what is that? Wait, pause. What is that? What is that? Is it just a table? So it really doesn't mean anything? No, but it does mean something. Like if he just said it when he died, it wouldn't mean anything. But he said it when Susie left and the snow globe. The sled! It's about his parents. Damn, what a sad way to end life. I really like that movie. That's so sad. That's so sad. Because just like there's two things that I'm trying to hold in my head at the same, like both at the same time. We never got the history of Charles from his own mouth, right? The memoirs we got were from Thatcher. We never got the story of his life from himself. He never wrote a book about himself. There was no autobiography. There was no memoir. So these are all the memories and the flashbacks of his life from the people in his life. These are their perspective of who this man was. The only thing we know about him, not about him, the only thing that he's given us from his own lips was Rosebud. And Rosebud was the sled that he got from his mother. And Jedediah said it himself that the only other person outside of Charles that Charles actually loved was his mother. And it was a questionable thing, but I can say that it's honestly true. So the two things I'm trying to hold in my head is that first perspective of Charles's parents is from the perspective of Thatcher. That's from Thatcher's diary. So, of course, Thatcher, the person who's taking ownership of Charles, the sixth richest person on the planet, is going to paint his parents as this, his mom as this not caring person who's willing to sign his kid away, who packed his bags a week prior. He's not going to write a story of taking ownership of a super wealthy kid where he's the bad guy. He's going to paint the picture of his mom as an uncaring person and his dad as a bumbling idiot that is willing to change his mind once he hears $50,000 a year for the rest of your life. You have to remember that. That's not Charles's memory. That's not the words from his parents. That is from the perspective of the person that's trying to take him away from them. Charles's last words is Rosebud. Rosebud is the last connection we have to his mother. Maybe his mother wasn't the way the movie depicted his mother. Maybe his mother was this kind, loving person, and Thatcher, this money-hungry asshole, was like, this is the story that is going to be in the record because I have the money to do so, and I am going to describe them as horrible parents, and I did the world a favor by taking him in. But the reality could be, and we'll never know, that they were loving parents. And Thatcher was this fucking conniving businessman and just forced them to do it and make all of this law jargon saying that technically this is not yours. And the state of Colorado is going to own it if you don't allow me to shape this man to make sure, I can 1000% see that happening. I didn't like Thatcher from the second the movie started till the end of the movie. So that wouldn't be out of this world. I just want to make that known because I've been talking a lot of shit about his mom. What he wanted was his mom. The other reality is maybe it is true. And if it is true, his entire life makes sense. Your parents give you up for a specific number. Your entire life, you learn that, okay, I can buy my way into love. I can give people the things that they want, and then you have to love me. Before he left, it's like, Mom, why can't you come with me? And the last words out of his mouth is Rosebud. The last thing that connects him to his mother. And his mom put a price on his head. It truly is a sad story. With just the current materialistic world that we're currently living in, not currently, this movie was made in 1941, and it's as materialistic as any materialistic movie can ever be. It connects so at such a deep level. It shocks me. It blows my mind that I care this much, that I want to discuss this movie this much, that I'm trying to understand who this person is, because it is the ultimate question, right? Every time the lottery is at $1 billion, the only conversation I have for a week with my friends and siblings and coworkers is, if you win the $1 billion, what would you do? Everyone has that fantasy. He got to live the fantasy, but the beginning of that fantasy was his parents selling him into this fantasy. That is just it's so hard to wrap your head around. You want the fame and the fortune. Everyone wants the fame and the fortune, right? But if you want the fame and the fortune because of the fame and the fortune, and you think that those things are going to give you the love and the respect and the honor that you think you deserve, the second it doesn't feel right, it's like, what are you chasing? It's like what is it that he wants? He wants people to love him, but he never feels it. He doesn't know what that feels like. Everything that he sees and everything that the people around him sees is, money signs. How much do I need to pay you for the thing I want from you? How much do they want from me? Anyone who's ever loved me, beginning with my mom, saw money signs on my face. How do I interpret that? What kind of human being am I going to be? Anyways, this movie, it truly is a classic. Like, when I say it is a classic, it's the definition of a classic. I can't believe I care and am so involved in the story as much as I am. I truly am, right? Like, I've watched Gone with the Wind, I've watched Lawrence of Arabia, I watched all of these great movies from back in the day, and you appreciate the story, you appreciate what they're talking about. But this makes me question my humanity. Charles Foster Kane's story is not something that anyone can relate with because he's the richest human being, in every circle he's ever in 24/7. but the idea behind it is, what do you want? If you can have everything you want, if anything and everything that you want you can get, what is the purpose? Why do anything? I mean, it's the ultimate question. Like, look, I promise I'm almost done. I promise. But like, if you can do anything, and if you can have anything, and if you could, whatever, like all of it, right? We're talking about like God levels of anything, anytime, all the time. Life becomes very boring very quickly. You get it all the time, no matter what. At that point, when you get to that point, you're looking for reality. You're looking for connection. You're looking for something you can't purchase. But if your entire life is purchasing everything, you don't know how to function in that reality. I love this movie. Holy fucking shit. I can't believe I'm saying that. But this is probably the best classic I have seen out of all of the classics. I think my favorite classic prior to this was 12 Angry Men, just because that is going to be a question that human beings think about for the history and for the future of human beings, period. And this movie's doing the same thing. What do you want if you have everything you want? What is your purpose? What are you chasing? And why? And why? It's a beautiful movie. It's a beautiful movie. I can talk about this for another hour. But thank you. Thank you so much for joining. Don't let me know what movie I should see next. The truth is, I am going to just go down the AFI Top 100s list, and I'm going to try to watch all of those movies because I think they got it right. Until the next classic, deuces.